Hey, fellow patriots, I'm Bree.
And I'm Blaze. Some call me Pa. It has been said that we have 4 boxes to keep ourselves free. These are the soapbox, the ballot box, the jury box, and the ammo box.
And we are the 4th box. We are here to arm you with enough information, resources, and skills to take back your freedom, increase your self-sufficiency, and inspire you to join in the fight against tyranny.
Thomas Jefferson said, "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty." Thank you for joining us and for joining in this fight.
Welcome back to the 4th box. Welcome back to the 4th box, everybody. This is our 94th week here. It's hard to believe, but we're so happy to be back. We, as promised, are joined by a guest this week, and we cannot wait to introduce him. I am so excited to see where this conversation goes. And as the pre-show conversation alluded to, it sounds like it could go in a million different directions. So we're super excited to see how it unfolds. But before we do that, Pops, I'll let you get us started.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody. We're certainly glad you are joining us here on the 4th box, coming to you from our virtual Buckman Tavern. It's the place where patriots gather. Tonight, I want to toast, of all things, I want to toast a congressman, which we don't do that very often, but I want to mention that Chip Roy is leading a bipartisan coalition who are going to bring to the floor a measure to get our federal legislators out of stock trading, or what we commonly refer to as insider trading, where they have the blessing of knowing what kind of bills are coming out and what industries that's going to affect, and they make a necessary for those folks detrimental to us purchases. So Chip Roy is vowing to do this. Oddly enough, you might note that about 4 times as many Democrats have signed on to the coalition as Republicans, but it is a bipartisan coalition. And I am toasting those fellas tonight. I'm having a lovely white wheat beer. Salute to Chip Roy. At least in this instance, I can stand behind calling that to mind that these folks have been doing this for quite some time. I don't want to take up a whole lot more time. I got a quote for tonight, and then we're going to bring in the guest. My quote is, "As the historical definition of a free person is a person who owns his own labor. Free people no longer exist in any country with an income tax." And that comes from a fellow we used his quote not too long ago. Paul Craig Roberts had that quote. So I found that to be very much in line with our thinking. And if you consider yourself to be a free person in a country that has an income tax, you're sadly mistaken. I'll let it sit there, and let's get started with our guest, Bree, if you want to bring him on.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for the quote. Great way to get us started. We have had a conversation very similar to that not that long ago. So with that, let's just get into this conversation. I know we're all excited to do it. Today, we are joined by Steve Jarvis, a 5th-generation farmer and regenerative agriculture expert who has spent his life working to protect real farming from government overreach and corporate capture of the food supply. Steve has seen firsthand how green energy and environmental policies are being used as a backdoor to strip land from small farmers, and he's been on the front lines of efforts to restore soil health, food independence, and local control. So today, we're diving into land grabs, greenwashing, and even weather modification, maybe even more topics than that yet to be seen, and what this all means for the future of our food as well as our freedoms. So with that, Steve, I know it was hardly an introduction. Why don't you just take it away and tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do and all the things that you're working on today?
Well, let's just start off with why I'm here. And the reason I am here is because my wife is 5th-generation dairy, and I'm 5th-generation agriculture myself. My dad was head of Hopkins County. It was back then. It was called the ASCS office. It was a USDA office there, and he was head over that whole region there in Northeast Texas. We had 575 dairy farms there in Hopkins County. We were dairy capital of the world in 1978 per capita, if you can believe that or not. and the family farms have disappeared, and it's just gone faster and faster and faster. And let me just fast forward that all the way to 2009, where we were agriculture's year. We were shipping 500,000 pounds of food to 10 grocery stores. And then gratefully, the President Obama introduced the Food Modernization Act, and that was TKO to our farms because we could no longer sell direct to grocery stores. I also at that time helped write the rules for organic meats for the state of Texas on pork. I was the first range-fed pork guy there in East Texas. And how I got into that is my wife's family dairies were going out of business because the government regulations and overreach were killing them. And so we had expanded, and we're using the waste feed and milk on those, and expanded and became a range-fed pork operation. And that's how I got into writing the rules for organic meats for the state of Texas. Well, they made a ruling in one weekend. They said we could not ship hogs to any livestock barn that ran cattle through, and that was over in one weekend. Hogs went to 8 cents a pound, and it was completely over for all the hog farmers pretty much nationwide. And that's why we're Smithfield, which is owned by China now, and that's why that is birthed that way. So in 2010, we were out of business. Agriculture year in 2009, out of business in 2010, just because of government overreach and regulations. And what's happening now with Brooke Rollins, and see, here's what's really interesting. I've been invited. I've spoken DC twice in the last 80 days. And what's happened is Brooke Rollins won't meet with me, won't speak to me, because what she does is she has guys come to DC that have never farmed. They don't do agriculture. They know what they're talking about, kind of, but they've really never been to it on the grassroots level, and they listen to them. And she doesn't want to talk to me because she's afraid of me. And the reason she is afraid of me is because her policy, she was director of policy under Rick Perry, and you know what she did? Nothing. When our farms are dying, what she was big on was the Go Texan label. Guess what Brooke Rollins is working on this week? Farmers are dying across the United States. Ranchers are getting in the teeth. President Trump has lost his mind. Sorry, I'm just calling. I voted for President Trump. I am part of MAHA, and I've been mega, but President Trump has lost his mind. The people that are advising him have no idea what they're talking about. And Brooke Rollins is working on nutrient-dense labeling. That's exactly the same thing that killed all the small farms off in East Texas in 2010 to 2015. She went through that Go Texan labeling, and she went through this 5-step program, and she's doing exactly the same thing. And I tell you what, I sent a message to one of President Trump's advisors. I sent a message to him. I said, listen, nobody does this thing like they're doing it right now unless they're doing it on purpose. And Brooke Rollins, listen, it's nothing against you personal, President Trump. Nothing against you personal. If Mickey and Minnie Mouse were in those positions, I'd be cussing them out too.
Amen.
Whoa. Yeah. Dad, dive right in.
Well, you know, the first thing, as Bree mentioned up front, we like to frame everything in a constitutional light. And the very first question I would have, and I know this is probably too big to tear down, but there is no constitutional authority for a USDA or whatever it is that is running the show, that's calling the shot, that's forced these things. The federal government is supposed to be limited to the 18 specific things spelled out in Article 1, Section 8. And the 10th Amendment goes on to say that the power is not delegated, meaning it has to be clearly spelled out, and it is not. The things that you are talking about are not spelled out in the Constitution. Therefore, they do not have the authority according to the 10th Amendment, because if it is not delegated at the federal level, it is to be left to the states and or the people. Now, I know that's a whole big bite to try and tackle, but that's where this conversation needs to start and end. They have no constitutional authority to be regulating any farms, period.
Well, let me just say this. So I wrote a farm plan to create 1 million new 40-acre farms in the United States. They're actually 120 acres. You farm 40, you rotate, you move cattle, whatever. That's kind of how it is. It's a little more detailed than that, but that's in a nutshell. It's actually a war plan. You actually develop the farm corps, and RFK, y'all know probably RFK came to my farm because he knows that I've written the Mystic Bill and have written the farm plan to save America. But what you have to understand is I've talked to some of the top constitutional lawyers in DC, and they said, Steve, nothing has been done in the last 80 years that's constitutional. Most of this stuff is just done under policy and statutes. And if we really wanted to go back to the Constitution, and so what I explained to them how my Mystic bill would work, they said, Steve, if you can get your Mystic bill done in 35 states, you actually are going to get us back to the Constitution, and then we'll just work backwards on all the other stuff. Because in the Mystic bill, it basically gives the power back to the people, and the people in the states say, I do not consent for this pollution to be put over me, and that's the problem. In the Mystic bill, 10 months ago, weather modification was a conspiracy theory, and now we know it's true. And now the big fight is me trying to get people. Now, here's my solution. So everybody's screaming online, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem. What I like to do is say the problem and then write a solution, because I think it's important to have those solutions down. And I need people to help me. In every state, there's a way to write in candidates. And we need to replace everybody in the Senate, in the House, in Washington, D.C., and we need to replace, I think it's 1,797 senators, state senators. Just replace them all. And I don't care if the guy can read or he's got a third grade level and tobacco runs out of both sides of his mouth. We do write-in candidates, because here's the deal. We're going to go back to the Constitution, and we're going to go back to the moral judgments and do the things that God wants us to do and have more clarity in how we rule the people. And we're not going to we're just going to start out with the Mystic bill. We don't consent for any of this junk being sprayed over the top of us. I don't care if you know what it is or not.
Yeah. Hey, Steve, another point I'd like to make along with that supports the constitutional argument. Sheriff Richard Mack is a good friend of ours. He's been on the show several times. Took the Brady bill in 1994 all the way to Supreme Court, and they overturned that. And it was probably the most significant 10th Amendment case in U.S. Supreme Court history. And what it says in a nutshell is states are not subject to federal direction unless it is one of those things that is clearly spelled out as a constitutional authority. So if your state legislators understood their job and understood this case ruling, they do not have to abide, they do not have to allow the federal government to oversee the land and everything else that you guys are trying to take care of properly and do the agricultural work on. The 10th Amendment case in Prince and Mack versus U.S. should be a baseline for you guys' argument in keeping the federal government off your back and out of agriculture.
Well, here's the thing. The problem is we've been in this type of system so long that most of us have grown up in this. So we don't really know how to get out of it. And it's very hard, because the people that, we're on this podcast together, but let's face it, most of these people are running their kids to soccer and baseball and skating and everything else. And they don't really know. If we could get the people on board with us and what we're talking about, we could stop this very easily. But we're almost to the end of the game, is what I say. If we can't repair this system and do something by 2030, I'm afraid it's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're right there with you. I know, Dad, I can see you're just chomping at the bit to ask more questions, but I want to dive in a little bit further into a couple of things that you said, Steve, because I want to be able to back it up for our audience here and explain a little bit. Let's go into the Mystic bill in a little bit more detail. Mm-hmm. What is it? What's the goal there?
Okay, so the Mystic bill, what it does is it covers, most people don't realize that weather modification has about 7 levels to it. And this is the big problem. The big problem is it's always about, fuel and commercial airliners, or it's just contrails or all that. But what you have to understand is it's 7 levels deep. And we're just going to start out at the top level. Let's go to balloons that are 62,000 feet, releasing things that are in the SRM, stratospheric, they're releasing metals up there to reflect sunlight. And then we're going to drop down to the NATO planes. And those NATO planes, which I'm the guy that broke the story on the flooding in Kerrville down there in Texas. I'm the guy that broke the story on that. I had the documents already ready. I'd been studying this stuff. And when they dumped 120 billion gallons of water in 4 hours over Kerrville, I'm from Texas, folks. I'm from Texas, so I know that region down there. So when they dumped 120 billion gallons of water in 4 hours, which is double the amount that goes over Niagara Falls, finally people were like, oh, this crazy guy out in the middle of nowhere, he's actually got something. I think maybe that guy might be right, that there's something going on. Well, the NATO planes were flying that evening, and then we're going to drop into the drones and we're going to go what the drones are doing, and then we're going to go into the smaller planes, and then we're going to drop down into NextRad, and then we're going to go to the AT&T towers. Then we're going to go into the systems that put off iodine that do that. And I left out one, satellites. That's above the balloons. And so all these work together, and they all make weather modification. And if you get into this, it's very hard to just turn a blind eye to it, go away. But the reason this is personal to me is because in 1989, I was working cattle in the flat top wilderness area, and I was sprayed by a helicopter, and I was spent 7 years on my deathbed. 2 of those years, I didn't hardly get out of bed. So I was trying to scream, if y'all can imagine this, I was trying to talk about how our government was spraying us in 1990. That's before cell phones and computers. Now it's a wonder that I don't have a real long beard and I'm drooling out the corner of my mouth and I'm not reporting you for some ward, with rubber room on narcotics. Because the thing about it is that now people realize it's truth, but people have to get on board and they have to do something. And the way you do something, for instance, in my weather modification bill, the Mystic bill, if you get your senators and your House representatives to put this bill forward in your state, well, it is the toughest because it covers all those areas. It's not just sulfur dioxide or whatever that's coming out of commercial airliners. It's all of it. And people, and here's the big whiner part. Okay, let me go into that for just a 5 second. Because Karen comes on and goes, well, you can't do anything in the state above 400 feet. Listen, the plane's got to land, folks. And so we get 35 states involved, and that cowboy that's flying that thing, he gets arrested, okay? Now, you got Johnny. He's a 9-year veteran of the military. He's flown 7 billion hours in military combat, and now he's an American airline guy, and he's got 19 kids, all right? When he lands that craft, his ass goes to jail. Sorry, not sorry. You were just like in a drive-by shooting, and you didn't know your cowboys in the back seat had a gun, all right? And they just killed a boy. It goes capital murder. You go to jail. Same thing. You go to jail. And that is, I wrote the part of the Mystic bill that is the toughest. And that is the pilot gets arrested. It's a $500,000 fine. He's 2 years county state jail. You don't get past go. Mama's going to cry. The kids are going to cry. Sorry, not sorry. I don't give a crap. This guy's had any convictions on anything in his life. He goes to jail. Because it's the same thing as Johnny driving down through your town with a truck load of beer cans in the back, and he's throwing them in your yard, in the creek, in the river, and everything else. And what he does, he gets arrested because he's polluting. And that's what people need to understand. It's under pollution. Stop trying to figure out what lanthanide is. And I'll just tell you what, let me just go ahead and tell you what lanthanide is. Lanthanide is 14 heavy metals that are sprayed from atmosphere of UN planes, and those lanthanides get in your blood system, and that's called nanotechnology. Let's go that deep. No, we're not going to go that deep. You don't want no piss poured out of a kite. That's the whole issue, and that's what I'm trying to tell everybody. No, we don't want anything, and we don't consent to this, and your legislators won't get on board this. Replace them. Oh, and oh my gosh, let me go into this for just 5 seconds. For the first time in my life, I was called an anti-Semite 2 days ago. And the reason is because I work in 6 different states, and I question these senators and representatives that went to Israel. Okay, fine. If you were a U.S. senator or you're a U.S. representative and you're in Washington, D.C., fine. You go to Israel, fine, because you're, in the big boys camp. But if you're a state representative, what the hell are you taking all this money, going to Israel, doing this stuff? No, you're not Montana first. You're Israel first, and we don't need you because the boys in Montana are trying to castrate calves and run their ranches, and you're part of the problem now. Is this too much? Is this? Am I going too much?
No. This is
You're right. You're right in our wheelhouse. Hey, I wanted to come back real quick. So you're talking about these 7 layers. Who is paying for this?
Well, there's 15 agencies, and these 15 agencies all start with the federal government. And
okay, so our House of Representatives, that every bill that requires spending has to start in the House. So the House of Representatives, the voice of the people, is okaying this. They have to. The House of Representatives has to approve the funding for this, unless it's coming from out of country.
Well, let me just tell you this. I'll tell you this. I've contacted Marjorie Taylor Greene at least 25 times, and I'm surprised she hasn't contacted me because I mean, RFK has been to my farm. I talk and tell people the solutions all the time in Washington, D.C. on several issues: agricultural, weather modification, and then about trade, about tariffs. What should be done on that? So I tell what they should do on this. Oh, by the way, though, I flunked college, so this gives your children hope that you can be smart and do things and know what you're doing on the planet, even though you don't go to college. So what I do is I've been trying to tell Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tim Burchard to say, listen, I need y'all to not put forth a weather modification bill in the federal government. I said, I just want you to do two things. And Bobby Kennedy was here at my farm. I got 7 minutes alone with him, and I said, listen, Secretary Kennedy, I love you, brother, and I respect you. I said, I need you to do this for me. And I can't share what that is, but it's very good, and he is doing it. But what I wanted him to, by him coming to my farm, he was saying he can't come out and say, I support the Mississippi bill. I support what Steve Jarvis is doing on that. He can't come out because of the Hyde's law or some kind of law like that. I don't know. It's something stupid. But anyway, but he is supporting what I'm doing on the Mystic bill. And not only that, I have the top 200 doctors in the United States on video that will testify for me in court that I have all those because I am part of the Maha Coalition. And all these top doctors are supporting what I'm doing because they know that it's causing illness in the United States among humans. And we have all the technology. I have access to one of the top microscopes. There's only 30 of them in the world. And I have a doctor that gives me free access to this, and that they have done snow samples, fog samples, water samples. I have blood samples. I have a horse sample here from North Idaho here. Horse dead from drinking out of Priest Lake from aluminum poisoning. The thing is, we have the evidence and we have the stuff. The thing about it is our legislators in our states have to step up to the plate, and it's not Israel first. I'm not an Israel last guy, but it's America first and Israel somewhere along the way. So I'm not against them. So I'm going to put that down. So I've been called an anti-Semite in the last few days, but that is the issue. The issue is we got to have people that can step up to the plate and make videos and say, hey, I live in the state of Ohio, and this is how you do a write-in candidate.
Mm-hmm. So, Steve, are you of the opinion that the people that have been in government, particularly those that have sat in office for a very long time, basically have made themselves the enemy of the people of this country?
100%.
They are our enemy. That is the whole just behind the fourth box. We are so convinced of what you're saying. I've been in this fight since 1989 when I left the Pennsylvania State Police, when I knew and I learned firsthand that government agencies are not out there doing what they are selling you that they're doing, protecting and serving. That is not what they're all about. It's about collecting revenue for the state to keep the big machine rolling. And I'm sure in the 40 years since I've been gone, it's only gotten much worse. And as we watch the border be willfully left open with thugs and drugs streaming into this country, the tearing down of our education system, destruction of our medical system, everything has been torn down. It's been done on purpose. It's been allowed to happen by these people that have sat in office for a long time and those that are sitting behind them, the big pharma, the big food, military industrial complex. I agree 100%, and we've said this stuff for 25, 30 years that we need to be putting new people in office. But, I just do not know how to find a receptive audience to this. We have been on the courthouse steps. We have been in our state capitol. We've been in D.C. We have been shouting at the top of our lungs to try to get people to wake up, get engaged, recognize what is going on around us. They are killing us with intent. They're filling us full of shots that we don't need. They're dumping stuff out of the skies on us. They're poisoning our children. They're dumbing them down in the education system. And we have to recognize this is a war. We are at war. And we're at war with the people that are supposed to be looking out for our best interest, but absolutely are doing the opposite.
And see, that's the thing about it is I've called them out. And listen, tomorrow I'm breaking this news on Emerald Robinson's show, Lindell TV. And what's so good about me being on Emerald Robinson is that's one of the most watched news programs that's in Washington, D.C. And I've called out. So, for instance, Bobby Kennedy and I've advised him on what to do on, bringing back agriculture, because what I wanted to do is, in my plan, was number one to stop weather modification. So we got a weather modification bill, right? If you're going to stop weather modification, here's the rules how to do it. And the thing is, the federal government can't stop weather modification. That's what I was trying to tell Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tim Burchett. I said, listen, you guys, I don't think you realize it. The money that's in there, it's USAID, which, okay, they say USAID is closed down. Okay, so it went to the other 14 agency. What that means is the National Science Foundation gets $290 million a year to give out to colleges to study weather modification, and has for 20 years. So if weather modification wasn't real, why are we funding all this through the college under the National Science Foundation? And go to NASA, we go to HHS, we go to USDA, we go to all these departments, and they have all this money. So now you got to get all these 15 departments to give up all the money that's going to them. And then you got to go to the military industrial complex, and then you got to leave the UN, and then you got to leave NATO. Nobody's leaving NATO because we wrote NATO treaty, right? Am I telling the truth on this? You're the expert on this.
Yeah. I just think that as we mentioned early on in the show, and Bree, I don't want to take all the time from you. I'm sure you got some questions, but we are so far removed. We haven't been taught the Constitution. Nobody understands the Constitution. Nobody lives up to the Constitution. If we kept the federal government confined to the 18 specific authorities that are delegated, which are the only ones that has, there would be no USDA. How can we be appropriating funding for agencies that are killing us and dumping poison on us and poisoning our waterways? How? And we're sitting here doing nothing. And the Constitution was written to keep government small and to allow these other authorities to be handled at the state level, where we could go down to our state or local offices and raise hell with somebody. But this stuff wouldn't be going on at the state or local level. It has to be coming from above. And if the federal legislators can't stop it, then who in the hell is running the show?
Well, and that's why I say we go back to the state level, and we replace all the people. We go back to the state level, and we change all the senators. It's only 104 people that you have to replace in the state of Idaho. It's 154 in the state of Montana. It's 181 in the state of Texas. And you just replace Greg Abbott. Get him on the golf course where they wheel him around and play putt-putt. Okay, sorry. Greg, you suck, bro. I left Texas because you're running the state. And here's the deal. We just need people in there that are just common guys that have maybe run a business or two. They understand, really and truthfully, all you really have to do is be able to read and understand math. Okay? If you do that stuff, you can pretty much run this country, because the way they're running it now, they don't use math.
Well, they don't use any common sense, even, actually. And I do think maybe they're using a little bit of logic, right? Because clearly these things are feeding a motive. It's not all by happenstance that all of this is going on. So there is some logic, either that or they're incredible puppets for a puppet master that, whoever it might be, it exists. But the one thing that I did want to say, Dad, you kind of threw out some of the threats that people talk about a lot, right? Everybody knows the border's wide open. Everybody knows that our education system is absolutely failing down the tubes. There's a lot of things that are being talked about very regularly with the things that are going wrong in this country. However, the things that you're presenting, Steve, are not really being talked about, yet they are impacting every single one of us every day, especially when you think about something as simple as all of our health. We know there's a health crisis in this country, but we don't really talk about how it's tied to what you're talking about today. So if we could wake people up to this conversation, that I think is the real hurdle here, because this is a threat at your doorstep. Anyone listening, wherever you are, if you're in this country, it's happening to you right now, whether you think it is or not. It exists. It's real. It's happening. So I think all the people that are, sitting on their couch and watching whatever it is that they use to distract themselves on the TV are usually of the mindset that, well, it's not really affecting me. So, why would I have the, why would I take the energy that it's going to require to get involved? But it does impact every single one of us. And everything that you're saying is proof of that. So how do we wake people up to that? How do we make people aware that it is already at your doorstep?
Well, let me just tell you this. It's been very difficult for me because I've been screaming this stuff since 1990, and it gets wearying, if that's actually a word. I flunked college, and they passed me in high school. So I don't know if that's actually a word, but what I find is that people, they don't think it is affecting them. But what you have to realize is we're importing 25% of our food. President Trump is coming out right now saying we're going to buy cattle from Argentina, and we're going to. Well, you just gave them $20 billion. They ought to be giving us cattle. And the issue is that if you do the math on the cattle, they can't do this. It's impossible, and that's the problem. And what people have to realize is if we would stand up together, this is really the message here of this podcast. If you can just get people to stand together and just say, no, we're not doing that. We're not going this way anymore. No. Are we going to have a civil war? We're getting guns out? No, we're not doing that. But here's what we're all going to do. You're not going to use my money anymore to destroy this nation. And that's what's happening. This nation is collapsing. And I was telling this, I was telling this to Bobby Kennedy's team in December of 2024. I mean, God woke me up November 9th, 2024, said, write this farm plan. And I believe God does want to save this nation, but he wants people to stand up and do something. And if you're not going to do something, and you say you can't do anything, I'll tell you what, if you're a single mother and you're on welfare and food stamps and you can do anything, you have a voice and you can say, and you can tell 10 other people. And that's really the way to do this. And we need to do write-in candidates, and we replace all this government. I'm talking about the government in Montana, the government in Louisiana, the government in Missouri. And I don't care if the guy that's been good, listen, I believe Tom Massey's good. We need to send him home. I love him. He's done a great job. Brother, we're going to give you a break. I got a kick-ass boy that's going to take your place, and he's going to say no to everything that the federal government is going to do.
Amen. And that's the way it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. We all take our turn and we impart a little common sense and we get the good old boy network the hell out of there, and everybody who's being influenced by outside areas, outside countries, outside money, get them out of there and let everybody rotate through every couple of years. That's the way it was supposed to work. But I think, and I was thinking about this week, I think there's a problem that has to do with the natural feeling of a person, and people, I believe, are much more inclined to support the notion of perceived safety and security. Freedom is kind of an abstract thing, the most of them. I say free men don't need permits. You can't walk out the door without a permit. So how badly are we being influenced by government? Terribly bad, because free men don't need a permit. But I think people are so numb to that notion, because when I say it, I am 100% serious. I think people are much more enamored with the perception of being safe. Somebody is looking out for me. Why should I worry about what's coming down from the sky? I'm sure they're doing it for my best interest. They have not accepted the notion that somebody is doing this with the intent of either dumbing you down or killing you. They much would rather run out and stand in line and get another booster shot than think that maybe somebody is intentionally trying to harm me. And I think this is what it comes down to, is people are much more inclined to gravitate toward what they perceive as safety and security than stand up and fight for liberty.
Well, let's face it. I mean, you're born into this system and you only know what you've been told. So, fortunately I wound up on my deathbed. So I actually was able to wake up. Now, I was a rebel growing up through school, and I always did what I wanted to do. And I had my own construction company by the time I was 17. And I made fun of one of my English teachers in high school, and I said, listen, you're just mad at me because I'm flunking English, but I make more than 5 times the money you do, and you're mad at Billy. And I said, you're mad at Billy because he quit school and he runs a snow cone stand down at the end of the corner by the baseball field. He makes $90K a year and then spends the rest of the winter in Caribbean. And the problem is, is I said, you're running this cookie cutter system and we're not all that way. But the thing about it is a lot easier to go along and get along than it is to back up and rebel. And the thing about it is, unfortunately, we make enemies along the way, even people we like and like us. Because the thing about it is, when it gets tough, because I was in Washington, D.C., and I was throwing down hard, and they said, Steve, don't you want to be here? Don't you want to have a voice? I said, fire me today. I said, I'm paying my way to fly to D.C. anyway. And the thing is, I'm not here to make friends. So anybody here on this podcast, you don't like what I'm saying, fine. I don't care. Because you know what? The issue is our nation is crumbling.
Yes, it is.
You're going to be eating lab-grown food. That's where we're going. That's why agriculture is dying. We're going to lab-grown food. It's all approved. It's already, the plants are already set up. It's all done. And unless you do something, and how you do something is stand up and just say, share with them. Start a there's a good group. It's Missouri Clean Skies out of Missouri. Oh man, I helped them crank off Missouri Clean Skies. They started off with like 400 followers and they're like 100,000 now. They do a great job at showing people how to get involved in their states.
I love that. That's exactly what we need more of. That's what we try and spread the message of too all the time, is like, there are local groups around you. Go seek them out. If you feel that you don't have a community that thinks like you, look a little harder, because they're there. Maybe they're not always the loudest. And that's what we need to get better at. We need to be emboldened, because this is so important. I would love for you to talk a little bit more about this lab grown food and what we really should be looking towards down the pike coming, because this is a very real threat and real concern. And I think people just don't recognize that as being the case.
Well, here's the thing. One of the things that people don't realize is, so I have a farm school. It's called sas-usa.com. Not many people join it because nobody's farming. I teach the old row crop methods. I'm the only farmer left in the United States alive. I'm the youngest of the old guys. I'm 57. Average age of the farmer, 62. I'm the last of the Mohicans, folks. I write my own moon phase calendar that teaches you when to castrate, when to plant stuff by. Don't get all spooky about this. I use the 12 signs of the zodiac, and no, I don't do all that devil horoscope and all that bullshit. I write the stuff the way my grandparents and all them used to do that. And that's the way it is. And if you would get back into just doing that stuff, ladies, let me give you a real simple secret. You're cutting your hair on the wrong day. That's why your hair's falling out. And your grandma knew it. And she didn't tell you that because it was just common knowledge back then. And they just talked about it regularly, on the street corner, not through cell phones or, they didn't even have party lines where they listen to each other, three people talking at once. No, this was common knowledge, and the Rothschilds got rid of it. And I'm the last guy that writes this stuff out. And my farm school teaches all this stuff. And listen, I'm not farming anymore for the public. I'm leaving 20,000 pounds of potatoes in the ground, folks. I'm leaving 20,000. I'm not harvesting them because I can't sell them, and I'm not going to dig them. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm done. But I tell you what I did do. I filmed every bit of it. I showed you how to grow it, how to do it, how to make high production on small acreage. Me and my wife and my children, we made 500,000 pounds of food. We shipped 500,000. We probably fed 200,000 off 35 acres, and it can be done. And I've been screaming this in Washington, D.C., that America can be so strong just back at a small farm. And the thing about it is, lab-grown food, folks, that's where it's headed. They already have the labs approved right now in the United States of America. By the end of 2027, they are going to be able to produce 75 billion pounds of chicken. That's exactly how many chicken meat is butchered in America today. And that's where we're headed. Lab-grown milk, lab-grown salmon just got approved. And I'll tell you this, lab-grown salmon that's in dog food, your dog's got hot spots, that's why. It's because they had lab-grown salmon. And is this what you want in life? Do you want this food grown? It's called scaffolding, cellular scaffolding. And they take cells and they grow this stuff. And I blew the cover on this back last year. I blew the cover on this when Costco came out with tallow. Remember everybody's like, tallow, you rub all that stuff on your face and you smell like a dead cow and your dog licks on you and all that stuff. Listen, Me and my wife, we've been butchering and canning our stuff our whole lives. We did 70 gallons of tallow last year. We have 25 years of tallow on hand to cook with and make skin whatever you need for. All right. Making tallow is rendering that is very difficult, and it's a long process. All of a sudden, Costco shows up with 2 quarts of tallow for $19.99. No, sorry, that's impossible. You can't do it, folks. Please just do some math.
Yeah.
So what I did, I started doing research on it. Guess what? I found a lab in Spain, and the lab in Spain, they can grow lab-grown beef fat, pork fat, and chicken fat, and Costco filled all their stores, and that's what they're doing. Can I prove it? No, but just do the math. It's impossible, folks. That's where it's coming from, and that's what you're going to eat. And you wonder why you're overweight. You wonder why you're not healthy. That's because you're eating stuff that is not real.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah, amen. Hey, Steve, I wanted to go back when you made mention about being a rebel, and it made me think of a quote that I oftentimes use, and I love it, and I hope you enjoy it, but it says, disobedience is the true foundation of liberty. We are not supposed to be told what to do. Government's only job, in particular at the federal level, is to make sure we have the right to live our lives as we choose, unimpeded, up until the point that it infringes on somebody else's right to live their life as they choose. We have gotten so used to this nanny state being involved in every aspect of our life. We're generations into it now. People don't know how to live without it. And if the government says it's fine, they're going to go right along with it and not read all the other tea leaves that says whatever government tells you is wrong. You should absolutely be going the opposite direction. I don't know. We've been shouting this from the mountaintops for 30 years. I do not know how to get people to wake up to it. I understand completely what you're saying. We've been doing this stuff for a very long time, and people just seem to be completely nonchalant about it. They have the perception of being safe and being secure, and nothing else matters. Freedom is kind of an abstract thing to them. They have absolutely no appreciation, nor do they invest any energy into preserving it.
Well, let me just tell you this. People are fixing to wake up big time, and they're going to wake up whether they want to or not. Because my understanding is, and I talked to a lot of the big ranchers across the United States, they're not renewing these operating loans. And Trump's talking about bringing in, Argentina beef and all this stuff. No, this is nonsense. I said, I wish I could go into the whole. I don't have tomorrow's show finished, but it's so detailed on what is exactly happening with Argentina, the leader of Argentina, and all this. People don't realize that America can starve to death this winter. We do not have the food in this nation. And we just need to tell the people in Congress. And can I just say this? Please, Democrats and Republicans, independents, just shut up for once and run the country. Stop fighting among yourselves over stupid stuff. Let's run this country and feed our nation and build our nation strong. And let's start with agriculture. That's a good place to start. And let's all go to our corners and all the other BS for a little while. And let's make our nation strong. That's really the issue. And just so you know, on the rebel side of things, where I come from, so my great aunt Frances is Frances Lee. So she was married to Henry Lee, which is Robert E. Lee's great-great-grandson, all right? He taught me to skinny dip in Montgomery, Alabama at the ripe age of 4 years old. So I got my Confederate baptism right there. And people can talk all you want to about the Confederacy and about slavery and all that stuff. People don't realize that Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson and those guys were fighting against the same thing that we are fighting against together. It's government overreach to tell the states what to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100% correct. States' rights. Exactly right. It just so happened that the convenience of slavery got to be the label, and in the history books from that point forward, it's a states' rights issue. Always was.
And let me tell you this. I've got a ton of black friends I grew up with in high school, and until Obama got president, I never had not one problem with any of my black friends or black people that I know any of. he started all that racism and slavery bullshit all started up again. And let me just say this, if people really get their history books out, there was a ton of black slave owners and a ton of black that sold the slaves. So don't start throwing down on the South. Really and truthfully, Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson, they were fighting against the globalist of their day. That's what they were doing. And whenever
that's correct.
People don't realize that Robert E. Lee, that Arlington Cemetery was owned by him. That's what people don't understand. And they don't understand that Abraham Lincoln said, Robert E., would you come and be my Union leader of the military? And he said, hell no, I won't, because no, I believe in states' rights. Listen, was slavery right? No, it wasn't. All right, fine. But the thing about it is, there was a lot more going on than just slavery. And what they do, they ping pong this back and forth. They do this over and over, and they pit us against one another. And all you, the black people and the Democrats out there, listen, I'm not against you. Please get a drink of this for once in your life. They're going to destroy this nation. They're going to use you and I as cannon fodder against one another while they're making their trillions.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely right.
Issue on this.
Yep. Absolutely right.
100%. Yep. I think what you said a few moments ago about starting with agriculture is so important. Making a strong country it should be so foundational. That should be so base level. Like, we're in 2025. We should be eons past this. And yet we can't even get this base level right. Feeding our nation real food. We can't do that even. If we can't do that, then we're so beyond screwed. So I love what you have to say. I love what your message is. And I also love what your solutions are. So I'd love if you could talk a little bit more about the concept of bringing 1 million new farms to America. What does that plan look like? And what does that actually bring us? Where does that take the trajectory of our country if we could actually establish that kind of thing?
All right, let me just say this too, because in my farm plan, when I did this, I went to RFK, I went to Maha, and I said, listen, okay, here's the farm plan. And yes, it looks very authoritative. It looks socialist. It does look that way. But the problem is my farm plan is a war plan, and our nation is at the zero mark. Okay. So yeah, if 20 years ago, yeah, maybe we could do this a little different, but no, the government has destroyed the farms in our nation, and the government needs to pay up. It's our tax dollars anyway. It's not like the government has this bank account that says, oh yeah, we can spend this money on this. No, it's our money.
Amen.
And so what I'm trying to do is convert our money into what will matter. And so in my farm plan, it creates 250,000 farms a year. Not only does it create 250,000 120-acre farms, you farm 40 acres of it, and then you run cattle, whatever, and it's rotate. Let me just say this. So my farm plan is called the United States of America Regenerative Small Farms and Food Act. The only reason the word regenerative is in there is because I had all these people say, Steve, you need to put regenerative in there. I said, well, can y'all tell me what regenerative is? They said, oh, that's when you farm a certain amount of ground and you let it rest a few years and then you move it on and you put live oaks and plant. I said, hell, that's just old farming. What are you talking about, regenerative?
Yeah, no, they got it. They got a new word for it.
I said that we've been doing that forever, and y'all got this click word on it, regenerative. I use the word regenerative. I love it. Steve Jarvis, regenerative farmer. But the problem is, I'm just glad I'm not 99, because I'd be like 99, but old ass regenerative farmer that just did it the old ass ways. I have no idea what regenerative is. And the thing about it is, all these clowns that are popping off on regenerative stuff, they've just been on the cycle for about 3 years, and it's Bebop and Betty in her little booby suit, and she runs on there and makes all these little things there. And hell, she don't know what the hell she's talking about anyway, because she's really just homesteading. She's not row crop farming 40 acres. Because here's the thing about it is, row crop farming, me and my wife just dug 15,000 pounds by ourselves. We have an old machine that I built and welded up. But no, you're not going to do it. And all these little wussy boys, oh, should we go into low testosterone? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know why you got low testosterone? Because your boys ain't worked their ass off all day long. My boys don't have none of that problem. And I'm 57, and I don't have that problem either. And you know why you ain't got no testosterone? Because you don't work your ass off all day long, and you're watching a bunch of bullshit online, and you could be farming out there, and you eat your own food. You eat your own meat, your testosterone's going to be off the charts, and sun won't kill you, just so you know.
Amen.
Yeah, that's so perfect. And again, so foundational. This should be so base level. This is like human health at its core. We shouldn't have to think about this. You said it earlier. Your great-great-grandma wasn't thinking about this. Your great-great-grandfather, probably even just your grandfather. But we've removed ourselves so much, and that was systematically done. That was all manipulated. And now here we are, so far removed from the very basics of human health, of real food, of fresh air, clean water. We are so far removed from that.
And here's the thing about it is too. So a good friend of mine, Brian Massard, he is the rancher that's been RFK's advisor for over a year and a half. And he is literally the rancher that got the food pyramid inverted. So and I don't know if y'all seen that on The Simpsons where they show that. Oh yeah. Okay. Listen, folks, all that lard, all that tallow, and a few mountain oysters, was that just calf nuts? If you eat some of them, I guarantee you, boys, you'll have testosterone off the charts. We've always eaten that stuff. That margarine and all that stuff, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think again, part of this to me, and I was thinking about this week, you know, about the whole idea of freedom being very abstract, and people don't really sense that they've lost anything, even though they gotta have a sign up if they're cutting somebody's hair that says they have a license and all this bullshit. But I think also life has become so easy for so many people. Hell, half the people over in these parts don't even work, and somehow they just get by just fine. For all the rest of us getting up and going off to work at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and these folks are sitting by and they're living just as well as I am. And I think we're so far into this now that such a large segment of this country has no idea, none, what it takes to survive. They call it their paychecks arriving in the mailbox. They call it their paycheck. They haven't done a damn thing their whole life, but somehow they live the same life that the rest of us that are paying for it live. And I think we are not going to wake these people up. We're not going to tell them there's a threat drawing nigh. It's all around you. You got to wake up. You got to stand up and fight back. I don't think we're going to wake them up. And we have become we, the laboring few, have become such a small percentage that we have no political clout anymore. That's why we were never, ever intended to be a democracy. It was never intended to be mob rule. All they had to do was create a bunch of freeloaders, and now they have the political winds with them. And we're in the minority. It was supposed to be governed by the rule of law. We're so far removed from that.
Well, I've been watching some of these guys that are talking about protesting where we just stop buying for a week, right? You just stop buying. Just the concern I have for that is I do believe it would work. But the other concern I have for that is that people don't have enough food. So if you do start a revolution like this where you want to really change things, I'm not sure that if people if you have enough food, you can revolt. But if you don't have enough food, you can't revolt. Yeah, and that's the problem with what's happening in the agriculture. And I will say this: the last year we farmed was 2010. I went to every high school within 30 miles of my farm and asked the ag teachers to send boys and girls to send there. Would they work and harvest for me? And I most of my equipment you rode on. You weren't like, I mean, it was manual labor, but you're actually sitting on a piece of equipment doing it.
Yeah.
None of them, zero. That was East Texas, and that was in 2010. They wouldn't last till 9 o'clock. I remember my boy was 10 years old. Zach, he said, Dad, why'd they quit at 10 o'clock? It ain't even hot yet.
Yeah.
And we have a very soft society, and it's on purpose.
Amen. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All of these little pieces are working together to destroy this country, destroy the food, destroy the education, destroy the water, pour crap out of the skies on top of us. This stuff is filled their head with this garbage on TV and the video games, you know, and they absolutely can do nothing to support themselves. They can't change a tire. They can't change their oil. They can't tear an engine down and work on it. We got nothing left. We got a country of sissies.
So let me share with you my sales pitch for President Trump, okay, for my farm plan. So my farm plan, I was supposed to have, I know for a fact that I got word that my name was brought up in the Treasury meeting in the cabinet with President Trump. And they said, Steve, your name was brought up. I said, well, was it good or bad? They didn't say. So anyway, I digress. But here's what I want to say is my sales pitch was this. We have an agriculture crisis in our nation. We're importing 25% of our food. People don't know how to farm anymore. They don't have the grit to farm anymore. 50% of the children between 1 and 17 have a chronic disease. 129 million people over the age of 18 to 70 have a chronic disease. That means 1/3 of our nation cannot function and they have a disease. I said, okay, let me give you some math, because I know that President Trump is a businessman and I know he doesn't understand agriculture. So I was going to come at him with this point of view. I said, if you will just throw the bank at this, my farm plan, just throw the bank at it. It's a war plan. My farm plan is a war plan. It's not about Sally and Joey and Jimmy and all them joining up. No, if you're going to be a part of my farm plan, you literally are going to go through boot camp. Because if you can't go through boot camp, you cannot farm. It's too hard. Now, my farm plan is to implement the military. All those have been in Afghanistan, Iraq. Listen, these boys have been in 150-degree weather with a backpack that weighs 180. They can farm. Okay? You know why? Because they got grit. That's why. And that's what it takes to farm is grit. No, you're not going on vacation. And yes, you're going to do it when it's raining. And yes, you're going to do it when it's cold. And yes, you're going to do it when it's hot. And no, you're not going to sleep in because you don't have time to sleep in, because that's just the way farming is. So I said, we're going to strengthen and take all the people that have been to war, and we're going to take those guys and we're going to implement them in this program. And anybody that wants to go through the boot camp part, they come in secondary. But all the guys that have been to war, they can do this. And then what we do is by doing this, throwing the bank at it, you create 754% ancillary jobs. That's truck drivers. That's tractor mechanics. That's tire shops. You're going to create, for every farm you put in, you're going to create 8 other jobs. Okay. The third side of this is one is you got all the military back into working. They got PTSD. You will not have PTSD if you farm 40 acres. Okay. You'd be too tired to have PTSD. Okay. So I got fixed all that. So that's one. Number 2, the ancillary jobs, 754% ancillary jobs. Number 3, the biggest sales pitch of all. So if I was a vacuum cleaner salesman, I'd say, Mr. Trump, here's the deal. We're spending $4 trillion on Medicare and Medicaid on health in America. If we heal 1/3 of those people, it's $1.3 trillion.
Yeah.
So let's throw the bank at it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I
Those
think
are
it
such
goes-
great points.
And you have to look at it from a 90,000-foot view. You can't look at it across the pasture. It's, do you want this nation strong? Do you want this nation Maha? And I'm not very happy with Maha, just so you know.
Me either. Yep.
And listen, there's some great people in there that work with me. My gosh. I did ask them for a doctorate degree, but they haven't come up with that yet. But the issue is that there are so many good, smart people in this gig. And if you look at it from a 90,000-foot view, if you want to strengthen America, you got to throw the bank as a brand new agrarian society and pay all ranchers and all farmers off out of debt immediately. Throw the bank at it. There's enough money in weather modification. I know this is hard to believe. There's enough money in weather modification to start 5 million brand new 120-acre farms. That means build them a house, build them a barn, buy them a tractor. That means buy all their seed. That means put all the water in. That means and give it to them. Are y'all listening? It's free. There's enough money spent in weather modification bullshit that is sprayed over this nation that's put aluminum in people's bodies. And that's why all these doctors are on board with me, because the aluminum is one of the biggest things in barium and strontium. And we all know that aluminum is causing Alzheimer's, and aluminum is a big part in mercury, is a big part in autism. And we know this. In 1986, there was only, I think it was, 1 in 10,000 had autism, and now it's 1 in 35 children.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Please help me.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you really want to get, listen, y'all need to put this online in the morning. This needs to go to President Trump's office. Mr. President, if you really want to get serious, I tell you what, for $200,000, I'll come up to Washington, D.C., I'll write all this shit down, and if you'll just implement it, you'll make this nation great.
Yeah. Steve, I don't think they want to make it great. Maybe Trump in his heart of hearts, but I think there's people behind the scenes absolutely do not want to make it great. They want to destroy this place, and that's why we're heading that way. And only we, the people standing in mass, just like you said a half an hour ago, if we all stand, this shit is over. Until then, it's only going to continue to get worse. And you can holler from the mountaintops out there in Idaho, and Bree can holler from New Hampshire, and I can holler down here. But until we all stand together, this crap is only going to continue to get worse.
No, it's true, and that's and I don't know. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I mean, I've blown the cover on so many different stories on Instagram. I mean, that Palantir video got 300 million views. I mean, because RFK came to my farm and I make these videos, but the algorithm is blocking me so bad right now. And here's another thing. Brianna, how old are you?
32.
Well, you're just a kitten. Well, Brianna, this is the problem. I don't understand how to wake these people up between 20 and 45. What are they doing?
See, it's interesting because when we have these conversations every week, I always really believe in my heart that my generation, and actually, even though it feels wrong, the generation one under mine is more awake. I think the issue is that they don't have the money. They're more indebted, which again, that's manipulated too. They don't have the money, so they don't have the time. And they don't, it's very hard to find voices to latch onto for the reason that you just said. You have very legitimate things that you're trying to share, but the algorithms are blocking those things from being put out to the masses. So it's very, very hard to find your people online, which is where most of us know how to interact with each other, because they've created a system where we have to interact through an online measure, but that measure it has so much oversight, so much control, so much manipulation that then it's hard for us to find our people. And then you see these things like a No Kings protest, which, has millions of dollars in funding from people like George Soros. And you think, oh, I'm the minority. How am I ever going to speak out about my opinion because there's not enough people like me? But that's not true. It's not true. And I see so many people who are waking up to this, so many people who are wanting to go to church, so many people who are like, I've never known God, but I feel like I need to right now in my generation. So many people who are like, I want to have a better understanding of what freedom is supposed to be, but they just don't know where to go. And when they try, they're blocked. Everything online, everything on their phone, on their computer, the algorithm blocks them from finding each other. So I think it really is going to take so much more in person and communal gatherings. Yes, it really truly is. It's hanging up flyers and it's, finding a local park where you can gather at. It really, I think, is going to take that because the people are there and the shift is happening, but we cannot be talking about it online to fix the problem because our voices will be squandered. And we need to be able to recognize that the voices are plentiful. We're just being silent.
Okay, so let's do a test here right then. All right, let's do a test. Here's the deal. Here's the test. If you're in here and you watch this podcast and you're between the age of 20 and 45, or maybe 20 and 30, Do you want to know? Look, please don't talk to me about hard times. My dad left when I was 13, and I didn't have a driver's license. All right, my mom had to go get 2 jobs. All right, so if you want to talk about hard times, I was at 0. You want to talk about the apocalypse? I was at an apocalypse. All right, when you're 13 and you have to get a job and you have to dress yourself for school and you have to fix your own food at 13, that is the apocalypse. So don't tell me nothing about that. All right. Do you want to know the truth? I can tell you the truth about the Bible. I can teach you more about the Bible in 3 hours than you can hear from any pastor in this entire nation. That's the truth. And that podcast actually was fixing to be out in about 2.5 weeks. And it's on the called The Religion Business. That if you look that up, Nathan and I, that's coming out. I literally show people out of the first 5 books. Look, when I spent 7 years on my deathbed for being sprayed by the military in the mountains, I spent 7 years on my deathbed. Let me tell you what I did. God directed me to read about ancient history, all the things of ancient Near East, all the things of Scripture, all that stuff. And so what I did in that 7-year period on my deathbed, I wrote how to overcome obstacles in your life. I have a book on joy. My book on joy, you can go to sas-usa.com. There's a book on there on joy. It's free of charge. It's a PDF. You download it. In the back of that book, this thing called the 12 Open Doors. In that 12 Open Doors is if you are out of order in your life and you don't have peace and you have anxiety and stress and you can't make money and you can't do anything, if you get in order, I promise you, all those things will come to pass. Don't tell me that you can't make it, because I made it from 0. So I lived through the apocalypse at 13. And not only that, by the time I was 23, I wound up on my deathbed, and I spent 7 years there, and I'm debt free. And I tell people that if you will do these things in your life, this is how I talk to the government the same way. I do use a few swear words sometimes, so I have to ask the Lord to forgive me. But the issue is, our nation is so out of order. And if you're a young person, so Brianna, we're going to message this out. 20 to 30 years old, are you hearing this message or not? Do you want things to be different? You can make them different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a little different vantage point on the idea of the younger people. I like to say that, and I'm very embarrassed to say, and I started, I think, bringing Brianna into these conversations when I write a lot of different pieces, but I wrote a piece and it was addressed to my kids. And I was talking about our generation and how ashamed I am that we took all of the blessings of the World War II, the greatest generation, and all of this great prosperity and everything that came out of that. We took that, and we also took trillions of dollars of those yet born, and our generation, spent it on ourselves, thanks to the government buying many of them off so they can sit at home and not go to work. But our generation, those of us who are old enough to have voted during those years, we allowed it to happen. We didn't do anything about it. We had an opportunity to, and I look to us. I look in the mirror. What have I done to fix the mess that we're dumping on these younger people? We are the ones that need to look in the mirror, and all of them skunks, thieves, criminals, and leeches down in D.C. that have stolen from us and bought themselves permanent seats down there are equally to blame, but we could have fixed it. Just like you said, we could have installed new people in there, roll them thieves out of there, put them in jail if they belong, and put somebody new in there every couple of years so we didn't end up in this mess. But we sat back watching football games and paying attention to Hollywood, and now we're wondering why we got the mess we got.
Well, it can be done. It's not over, so it can be done. And it's unfortunate we're in this bad shape, but it's guys like you and me and Brandon. You're young, but your daddy must have taught you well. My daughter's the same way. All my kids are the same way, and they understand. And we can fix this, but it's going to be a very hard time.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Amen.
I really believe that, though, and I really think that people like you who are sharing educational tools are a big piece of that puzzle. And, Dad, just as much as you say that your generation was lacking that accountability, so is mine. And that goes back to answer your other question, Steve. Yeah, maybe people are waking up, but are they holding themselves accountable? And that's something that we all need to be doing every day is what can I do better today? What can I do better this week? What can I do better this month to contribute to the solution and not the problem? So if you could, before we go, I know we're already over an hour. We certainly would love to have you back because I know there's so many things we could dive into. But if you could talk a little bit just briefly about the courses that you offer and things like that, where people can find you so that people do have these resources available to them for anyone interested.
Yeah, so sas-usa.com is my online farm school. And what I teach in there is the old row crop farming. Now, what you have to understand is there's 4 levels of agriculture. There's the gardener, there's the homesteader, there's the row crop farmer. And what he used to do, and that's actually what made our nation great, farms weren't 5,000 acres. Farms were all between 40 and 400, and 400 was a monster. 40-acre farm was pretty much, and if you go back to General Sherman in the Civil War, the 40-acre renewal, the Homesteader Act, the things about after World War II, all my farm plan is written on these basic principles that made America strong all through history. And so I teach the row crop farming, which is the third part of agriculture, and then you have giant ag. And then that is the 4 compartments of agriculture, and the row crop farmer he's pretty much non-existent. And so what I teach people is how to grow tons of food on small acreage. And not only that, I teach about how to castrate and operate on your animals. According to the moon phase, I have a video on there where I show you where I do castration on the right phase and the right sign of the moon, where the animal does not even bleed 1 drop of blood. And these things are lost. And it's sad. It's going away. I also teach how to learn the moon phases. It takes you a long time because, ladies and gentlemen, let me just say this. We're actually on a 28-day cycle of the moon phases. And ladies, if you have a problem in your female parts of your body, it's because you're operating on a Roman calendar and your body's trying to line up with a lunar calendar. Your body is in sync with the moon, whether you like it or not, and it's operating on a 28-day cycle. But the Roman calendar is sometimes it's 30 days, sometimes it's 31, sometimes it's 28. And in December 2024, it was February 29th. And then 4 years later, it'll be that again. So it's called, Brianna, if I could just say this, what I do is I teach order. I teach order. And I teach people this is order and this is out of order. And if you know what order is, it just helps you get direction in your life. And that's what my farm school does. And it has all those things in there. And I also have the moon phase calendar. You actually can buy the moon phase calendar just in there separately. And I have 2025 to finish up the year, 2026, 2027. They're all written out there. And if you're going to have surgery or cut your hair, yeah.
Tell you when to do it. That is awesome.
Yeah, I'm the last of the Mohicans.
Well, it's important. So we thank you for the work that you're doing.
You bet.
It was an extreme pleasure to have you on, Steve. I did want to comment about that nice whitetail right over your right shoulder there. That's a fine-looking animal. Is that taken up there in Idaho?
Shot him out of the kitchen window.
Nice. So I've been blessed enough to been up into Idaho a couple of times. Are you up in the Panhandle or?
Yeah, I'm south of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, about an hour and a half.
Okay, well, I've hunted up in Grangeville, Elk City, Koosky, up and through that area. You must be pretty close to there.
I'm a little north of that.
Okay, Wiggins, been through there. Yeah. Great country up there. We love it. We've been up. Bree's been up a few times also.
Yeah, beautiful part of the country for sure.
If you want to come up and do a live shoot here, we'll if you want to do a live podcast here. A lot of people are starting to catch wind who I am. I've kind of come out of the wilderness, my handle is out of the wild 3D, and that it's out of the wild 3 dimensions. And I've kind of come out of the wilderness to kind of help people get direction.
Yeah, I like it. I like that a lot.
I like it. Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us tonight, Steve. I usually finish with a Bible verse. Bree, if you're ready for that.
Yeah, right, I'm ready.
You shall eat the fruit of the labor of your hands. You shall be blessed. And that is Psalm 128, verse 2. And thanks again, Steve, for joining us. I look forward to having you back on and hearing of all of your challenges and great effort that you're putting into waking people up, and the great information that you've provided. Hopefully we'll get that all posted up on the show notes.
Yep, absolutely. Everything will be posted below. Yeah, that's it. That's all we have to say. But
Cool.
Steve, we really do hope that you join us again, because it was such an awesome conversation. I know we barely scratched the surface.
For sure. Thank you.
Wow.
Whoa. Great episode. We have so much that we want to dive into further with that whole conversation. I know we have more guests ahead, but I promise you Steve will be back, because there is so much there. There are so many important topics that we covered tonight, and I really personally cannot wait to get into them even more. So just again, a huge thank you to Steve Jarvis. Again, his website is SAS, that's SAS-USA.com. You can find all of his courses there. Out of the Wild 3D is his Instagram handle. I will share everything that he has posted online in the show notes below, so that you guys are able to find him. And hopefully you take advantage of some of the courses that he's offering, because I think there's a lot of really important stuff there for everyone of every generation. So anything else from you, Pops?
Nope. A great show tonight. I'm looking forward to having Steve back on. What a powerful, energetic fellow.
Yes, very, very high energy. We'd love to have that on the Fourth Box. And that's the kind of energy we should all be bringing, because as he said, we're at war. So it's time to take that seriously. So until next week, stay vigilant.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate the support and truly love getting to share this message with anyone who wants or needs it. The best way for you to support the show is to subscribe, add a rating, and share with everyone you know. You can find us on Instagram, X, and at thefourthbox.com. We'll see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Stay vigilant.